Welcome back to the Eric Krohn Crypto channel. It's a nice little Tuesday morning as we get ready for this live stream analysis. And on today's video, we're going to be going over actually a Bitcoin setup on the 12-hour time frame that is fired off after this last little dump, which I do believe is going to be the impetus for catching a lot of people off guard on this current move. Anyways, other than that, as always, I do want to humbly request that if you find this content valuable or in some way useful, please consider liking, subscribing. Obviously helps out the channel and is quite useful for the good old YouTube right there. Anyways, let's go into the chart view right here. First things first, started off with the daily statistics. And as always, Tuesday, or not always, I mean, this might change in the future, but Tuesday is the most likely day for Bitcoin to close positively. If we look at all Tuesday closures throughout the history of Bitcoin, 58.33% did close positively, which is actually by and far away the largest one. Friday's kind of close as well there, I suppose. But on Tuesday, the average return for those positive close has added just over 2%. And in the case that we have seen negative closures, just losing actually just under 2%. So if we play around with today's open, which is 42,500, then 2% on top of current price action would put Bitcoin, for reference, back around 43,400. And of course, Bitcoin were to lose about 2% or 190, that would put Bitcoin on the lows, essentially retesting the low that we have seen thus far at 41,700 for this current range. So you can kind of see the short term range likelihood for today's closures. And from there, we can start to talk about an actual setup here on the 12-hour time frame. You can see the equity curve in the background. I'll blow this up for you right here, right now. This has been tested over 111 trades. See how far back this one goes. I'm going to guess 2018. And wow, sorry, this goes all the way to 2010. So this is basically back tested throughout the full history of Bitcoin. There's only been 111 setups of this on the 12-hour time frame, which is it is a higher term time frame for Bitcoin kind of. And as we can see, the results have been pretty decent with a 66.67. It's like the devil's number right there. Percent profitable rate. So what does that imply? That implies that we would expect well, them more likely to close in this direction. So in this case, what I do want to now focus on is a few of the metrics on this one, because it has fired off at the price of 42,600, which Bitcoin is trading about $100 above as of right now. And what can we expect from this if it is to win out? Well, we can go to the performance summary for this and see what the average winning trade has produced. And it's actually, holy shit. Okay, this is a surprise. The average winning trade has returned just under 16%. The average losing trade has also returned about the same amount. So this one does have a slightly higher win rate at 66.6% likelihood to win out. So it will have obviously positive returns over time based off of that. But we're talking about big numbers here on average. So if I do look at this one and I do add, what is this, 16% on top of current price action? I mean, technically speaking, Bitcoin does have a higher probability of moving back towards 49,000 bucks. That was unexpected. By the same token, if we were to see this one be one of the losers here, what would we expect as far as downside? Well, 16% shaved off the current price action would put Bitcoin down just below 36,000 bucks. Now, on average, we would expect this to take, holy shit, 60 bars for this to play out. So that's a 12-hour time frame. So 60 bars would be 30 days, right? So 30 days from the actual official entry, which was on Saturday the 13th. So we're talking about kind of early-ish February. We expect Bitcoin to be either somewhere closer to 50,000 bucks or down just below 36,000 bucks, basically between now and yeah, about the midpoint of February in this case. So I was actually a little bit surprised to see that. So this is more of a long-term setup right here, to be fair. Doesn't mean it's always going to work out like that. Obviously, we did see a more recent setup right here on the 6th of January being resolved, relatively fast after that on the 8th of January. So just 2 days in between those, or 4 bars. So it's not always going to take 30 days. It's just the average here. And of course, even this one over here, taking significantly less, again, fired off on December 11th, resolved on actually January the 2nd. So actually that was in alignment with those statistics. And I'm guessing this one over here was as well. November 14th, resolved on December 3rd. Yeah, so a little bit more than about 3 weeks right there. So actually pretty close as well, I'd say, within the vicinity of kind of what we do expect. So in this case, we do see that if I want to produce some hopium for the Bulaws here, yeah, there is actually a higher probability of this one testing upside, just based off of that. However, again, I would remind myself to say that, well, let's see, what have the last... when was the last time we saw this one lose? The last time we saw this one lose was back in June. Since then, we've seen 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wins in a row. And I know that's not necessarily the proper way to be looking at statistics. You do have to look at each and every iteration as its own, as its own thing with a 66.6% probability to win out. But after five wins in a row since your last loss, it wouldn't be super crazy to say that this one's maybe a little bit more likely to lose, but fair enough. We do see something there now. So even without that, however, I would say that Bitcoin is more likely to bounce from this region first to probably $44,500. What I'm basing that off of is back on over here for the HPDR bands. We can see that on the daily time frame, Bitcoin is closing below the bottom side of the blue of 50% of historic returns range lows, actually closer to the 80% as of right now. And this is coming on declining volatility. Volatility is going to go back into contraction phase, it looks like, from here. And an HPDRO is seemingly kind of bottoming out from this region, indicating that a bounce is likely. The last time that we saw HPDRO this low was back on over in August, actually late August, on this major low over here. Let me just circle it out and let me get rid of this for right now. But it was back around this region right here of a comparable read. And yeah, things did bounce actually more immediately, about 11%. And then of course from there, market took on over and we did see an overall reversal in this case, leading us up to our current highs. But that initial move is kind of what I'd be looking for over here, and probably initial pushback as well. And if Bitcoin is going to end up being bullish and actually test back up towards $49,000, which I do think is less likely based off of everything that we've spoken about, especially on Saturday's video and also yesterday's video as well, then I'd be looking for, quick move up, reject, and then later this month / early next month, we do see the downside emerge. So fair enough on that. But for right now, Bitcoin more likely to bounce in the more near term, I would say, anywhere around the low side of the blue 50% of historic returns range lows is fair game, $44,500 basically, between there and the median. And again, I still remain with my overall analysis in the sense that while downside is more likely, I would say that is invalidated and upside is extremely likely, or it's not just extremely likely, it's fucking valid. If you start to see Bitcoin close dailies above $46,500, at that point, 49,000 and of course this setup over here playing out kind of becomes a foregone conclusion, and we just be looking for upwards and onwards past $50,000 overall. Again, I think that's extremely unlikely here, but that would be my conditions for kind of deciding on that. Until then, short-term bounce is likely just that, as long as Bitcoin remains below $46,500. Anyways, moving on now. What else do we have? Yes. So yesterday we spoke about this. Let me just make sure I have the right chart right here. Indeed, I do. And yesterday, we spoke about the 5-day time frame, which was closing last night, and there was a potential for bearish engulfing closure here, as Bitcoin did trade above the prior 5-day high and then closed below the low of that on last night's closure. So again, I am a lot more inclined to say that while Bitcoin probably bounces here towards 44.5, we've probably seen the high of this rally thus far. And this is also going to be accompanied by bearish divergence right here as well, as we do have lower highs on 5-day RSI correlating with these higher highs on price action. So a loss of momentum, and even the 5-day Joule is also starting to really tick down there. It is not supported by DMI just yet, so that's not a full-on signal, but probably good enough to at least test somewhere around the yellow 21 exponential average, which is just above $39,000. On top of that, if we go ahead and look at stochastic momentum, I do want to remind myself that on the higher term timeframes, we are seeing, pretty much the stars align in terms of all higher term timeframes signaling, downside. Weekly timeframe still moving down below 46,400. Again, that pivot coming up. Once again here, 5-day timeframe is also going to be upon the new closure, headed down as long as Bitcoin's below 47,500, so even lower than that, even higher than that. The 2-day timeframe also remains to the downside and loses the bullish control zone as long as Bitcoin's below 46,250. And we can even go to the 2-week in the monthly. The 2-week timeframe, which is closing not at the end of this week, but at the end of the week after that, 47,600, turning down from the critical zone, and monthly time frame, which obviously doesn't close this week, but will close at the end of the month, will turn down below 39,400. So we do kind of see everything in alliance with each other, and I would say that still this likely has the markings of a short-term bounce with rejection and then downside for like a month or two. Downside and sideways really for like a month or two, probably until the end of this quarter. Anyways, I think that's a good place for me to be leaving off on this particular video. I hope that this one served you well. As always, if you are interested in joining on these live streams, which this one's actually ripped exactly from, then you can join in on Tuesday mornings typically, although I might be switching this to Friday. In fact, I'd be curious to know from the community's viewpoint here, do you prefer Tuesday or Friday? Because my schedule might switch around a little bit and Friday might make a little bit more sense. So we'll see what we can do there, but yeah, we'll leave it right there. With that said, as always, wish you the best, take care, much love, and see you hopefully tomorrow.